Yo, C.A. Purcell, I got to do all these things. C.A. Purcell, Gumbolaya podcast, Ramblin at. This is a quickie, little quick share, if you will, or maybe roll the intro thing. Praise and production. Okay, so I just had a conversation with a loved one, and this person was asking me for advice on a relationship that they're trying to filter, figure out whether or not they should stay friends with somebody, right? And it got me thinking about, that topic, but also about the fact that there's a lot of young ones about to go to college, right? Our niece, or one of my nieces is graduating college, having gone through life living with roommates and about to possibly go into another situation, living, not, dorm living, but living with a roommate, how it might be helpful to talk about how to filter, you know what I mean? If you have a choice, for example, in a roommate, or if you're trying to, find peace and clarity on whether or not you should be friends with somebody, what are some ways to think about that? So I'm going to specifically talk about a roommate, but, maybe in another segment or episode or something, I'll, talk about, overall in my life. I mean, I talked about it in previous episodes. So I think, the circles is a good way to look at it as well. But so, when you're going into a situation with roommates and all, one of the things that I think a lot of people don't consider is how to start it. Like what to say and do towards the beginning that could be helpful, right? I went through this in a very unique way because I've never lived with someone that I didn't know or someone I knew didn't know very well, right? So I lived at home with my family, mom, dad, sisters, right? And when I moved in with some friends of a very close friend, right? I was able to crash with them while I got on my feet because, I didn't have much when I moved to Los Angeles. I had a little bit in the savings account and I had some equipment that was en route, with FedEx and whatnot. But, I didn't move here into an apartment of my own and I don't have family here. So, so I moved in with some people that a very close friend of mine knew very well, right? So I already had a certain sense of safety and security somewhat because they were agreeing to let me stay with them, for free, number one, to crash, for a little bit until I could get on my feet, as well as the fact that someone that I knew was telling me, no, they're cool. Like it's all good, right? So there's a sense of safety, right? But you go to college, there is the security of the fact that, they want to be there too, right? But more than likely, I guess some people are forced to go to college, maybe, I don't know. But what I mean is, they're there because they could just say, no, I'm not doing it, So you're not expecting that kind of thing, but you know who you're going to live with. And, if there is one thing that I know is 100% true is there are a lot of different homes in this world of ours and a lot of different beliefs on how people are supposed to live and a lot of different, there's a lot of different paths and cultural norms and community norms. And so most people in my experience will have something that you can relate to in terms of a common ground, a general sense of, how to live in peace, generally. But it is very likely that you might, have to room up with somebody that has a lot of things that you consider to be common sense and, nobody's ever talked to them about it. Maybe they come from a home that just didn't do it very well, or, you never know. So you got to decide going in to the situation that this is a environment where you're going to have to exercise the best of your learning regarding socializing, right? You're going to have to implement what you've learned about how to make friends, how to be a respectful person, how to contribute to society if your people took you through those kinds of things. You're going to have to exercise conflict resolution. You're going to have to exercise being considerate versus being selfish, right? And you're going to have to do that when you go home, because home is going to be this dorm room, or home is going to be this new, place that you're getting with someone, right? So this is going to be home, and you're not with mom and them, right? Mom and dad and siblings who there's an established sense of order, even when some of the people go astray and break whatever rules might be. There's still a certain sense of familiarity, right? So you got to go in considering the fact that you're going to have to communicate. It's the case with anybody that you have to interact with, whether you live with somebody, whether you work with somebody, or whether you don't live and work, but you have to, interact in some way. Like somebody in your class, maybe did you get thrown into a project group with? You got to communicate. And there's so many things that can be different about another person. There's no way to figure that stuff out. So start off with deciding what kind of person you are. Are you going to be respectful? Then make sure you're respectful. Are you going to be considerate? Make sure you're considerate. And then pay attention to what you learn about the other person. But so, your goal is to go into the situation understanding you're going to need to communicate, and you're going to learn how much the other person is invested in your the whatever level of intimacy y'all will have, whether y'all just know each other and just, hey, what's up? And that's it. You know what I mean? Or whether or not y'all are going to be close friends. That's the gamut of intimacy. Or, eventually you might even be closer than friends, right? But whether it's going to be a family feeling at home, or whether it is, we live here, don't touch my stuff, I won't touch your stuff, we'll be fine, or worse, So you're going to have to communicate. So go in understanding that and remembering that the other person might not have had someone tell them. You will have to communicate with this new person in your life. You're going to have to be honest. You're going to have to be considerate. You're going to have to make some sacrifices, that you feel comfortable with. You should expect them to do the same, but they might not. You might just, be roomed up with somebody that's selfish. But we're going to talk about the big red flags. So one of the things I wrote down is that you want to go into the situation expecting that, but also go into the situation expecting to learn how to be a better person. Right? I can't think of anybody off the top of my head right now that I have interacted with enough to kind of get to know them at least a little bit, right? And I mean, even little stuff like, the person that you see a lot when you go to the grocery store that works there, you know what I mean? Like, you don't really talk deep, but you might see that same person enough. They know your name, you know theirs. Hey, how you doing? Hey, my brother's in town. We're going to go to the movies. Whatever. Right? Everybody I've met, at least at that level or more intimately, there's always something at every moment in life where I can learn from them. Right? In the moments where I was not in that headspace, or maybe I wasn't operating from that perspective, I saw how conflict would happen, and I noticed how it would often be my fault. And that's one of the common threads that I would notice, that if I lost sight of the fact that I don't know everything and I don't understand everything, and the way I see stuff isn't the only way that reality could exist. You know what I mean? If I kind of get outside of the reality that, we're both equal humans on this planet, we can learn from each other, we can bless each other. Anytime I was outside of that mentality, there would be issues. And I strongly felt like it was because I lost sight of that and they felt disrespected, right? Whether or not what I said or did was a big deal, they felt like that. Somebody's feelings, muy importante. Is that how you say it? I don't know. Right? Very important. So you want to go in expecting to be in an environment where you can learn how to be a better person, where you can learn about a path of life that you don't come from. What are the things that they learned from their parents or their, community that you've never heard of, that you've never seen, that you've never done, or that you're not good at? You can learn from this person, right? It's very possible, and it's often very likely if a person doesn't feel threatened, and then, to determine what is a threat, you'd have to go all up into their history and, can't do all that. But in general, if someone feels safe, they feel respected, they feel comfortable sharing with you, eventually there'll be something that they can teach you, and if they're a person that wants to do that, then you might be able to learn something, and if not, then you just be, hey, how you doing? Don't touch my cereal, So go in expecting to be a better, learn how to be a better person. When you begin the situation, if you can choose ahead of time, if you're like talking to people to choose a roommate, go through that process. And, if you need to, I guess, hit me and I'll give you some suggestions on what to be looking for in that process. But if you don't have a choice, like the conversation I was having was with someone who has to see a person when they're near work, and they have to see this person a lot and they have to interact with this person. So because they're near their job, they're trying to figure out, should I be a little reserved and not give the impression that I want to be cool because, I shouldn't be cool with this person, or am I overreacting? That's what we were talking about, right? So when you begin the situation, go in looking for an appropriate moment, a comfortable moment to start this conversation. And the conversation is asking them something along the lines of, how would you like us to behave when we're home? What feels like the best case scenario in terms of how we live together? Ask them what feels good in terms of, when I come home, this is what I like, right? And it doesn't mean you got to do that, depending on what they say. But all of the things that they say that are reasonable, write them down. If someone says, it's very important to me to be safe, write that down, because you want to be safe, right? If they say it's very important to me that the place be clean, right? If you are not a very orderly, organized person, take this opportunity to do number one, which is to try and learn to be a better person. Doesn't mean that organized means better, but it is a higher level of functioning, right? And if this person is a clean person, you can pay attention to how they do what they do, and you can be better in that area, because you might find a life partner who is very, very high at that aspect. You might live with somebody who is like borderline or actually OCD in terms of how they need things to function at home, right? For some people, it's a very big deal. I lived with a friend earlier in my life that I remember one day we're at the crib and she was looking in my room, and this is before I left Georgia. She was looking in my room with like a kind of face, right? I was like, what's up? I was like, I know it's, crazy, messy. And she said, you're going to have to do better at this. I was like, what are you talking about? It's my room. I'm not, like, we weren't going in the room or something. I think she was helping me move. So I think we were. But So for some reason, I was thinking like, you don't have to deal with that. So why are you saying I got to do better? What are we talking about? You know what I mean? And she stood there and she looked around and she was like, you're going to want to bring someone into where you live. You're going to meet somebody and you're going to want to get married and do your thing. And she's not going to be okay with this. She was like, this is very, very messy, And because she is a great friend of mine and because she loves me very much, I didn't have an instinct to defend myself. Because number one, I knew I was sloppy and messy in my room. Like, I got a mom. My mom would get on me about stuff like that. But as long as I was respectful out of my room, my mom didn't lay into me heavy. You know what I mean? But as I got older, she would be like, that's ridiculous, But when my friend is saying it, this is the homie. And she's like, bruh, ugh. I was like, oh man, right? So if I was going into a roommate situation, right, and someone said, it's important to me that the place be clean, stay organized, whatever, and I'm coming from all of that, I probably would say, I'm not good at that, but I'm going to do my best. Something like, this might be a problem, but I'm going to try, right? I'm hearing that it's important to you, and, give me some grace, and I'm going to work to get up to the level that feels right to you. I just might need some coaching, right? So have the conversation. They're going to tell you the things that were normal for them at home, right? Wherever they're from, or the things that were abnormal about home that they want to be better now, right? Some people might come from a parent that's a hoarder. There are hoarders in the world. This person might be coming from someone like that. They might be a hoarder. Might happen, right? Obviously, were you to find something like that out, like in a dorm situation, you got to have the conversation. This is a lot for me. What you do in your room is your business. But once it affects out of your room or your area, right, then it's a shared issue, right? So, if that's the case, you got to have the conversation, right? So make the list of the important things, right? After you finish the list, if there's anything that's important to you, you add it, right? You got the list, right? On the opposite side of the piece of paper, simply write out an agreement that includes most of what you see, right? Or just use the word respect and peace, right? We are agreeing to be respectful towards a peaceful living situation. Signed, you and them, right? Expect the other person to choose whether or not they want to do it, right? Give them that respect and expect the possibility that they might not be comfortable with that. Now, it's not a big deal because you're not exchanging any money or something on the paper, especially if it's a dorm situation. They pay their board, you pay yours, and y'all don't, in my understanding, in a college situation, you don't really got to share a lot of expenses. But if you do, you talk about that. But right, this is not a financial agreement. This is just a written down verbal agreement. And if somebody breaks it, then you got to have serious conversations about, well, what are we going to do since we're not respecting our agreement, right? But if somebody feels like it's a big deal and they don't want to, that's okay. That's all right. You know what I mean? And prepare yourself to be respectful and honestly communicate. I understand that you're not comfortable with that. No problem, right? And then continue on with the point. The point is, well, we've written it down. Does this make sense to you? Is there anything you think that's important that I left out? Or is there anything on here that you feel like I misunderstood? Because I'm going to use this so that I can be clear on how to respect you and so that I can be aware of what you're telling me you're going to try to do in terms of you being a good roommate, right? So just ask the question. And then show respect. Thank you for taking a second. I want us to be cool when we're here. No stress, no drama, so that we can, help each other get through our school year. You know what I mean? And live together in peace and with respect, right? And then leave them alone unless they are engaging, and then you keep talking whatever you want to do. But, give them the respect of an out. Thank you very much, right? It's a good idea. The other aspect is, if it is a situation where you're sharing all of your expenses, like if you're graduating college and you're looking for a roommate to live with, right? You gotta have a money conversation. You gotta talk about who is going to sign up for what bills, right? And I think it would be a good idea to go to the neighbors in the area that you live near and get an idea of the utilities. It's more communication, because if you're going to live next to these people, you might need to know who they are and talk to them, at least at a cordial, we are neighbors level, right? A lot of people don't do that, but a lot of people don't think that's a good idea. I always have done that. So I told you the situation I moved into was with close friends, or close college friends of a close friend of mine. I went to high school with a dude that I was real cool with, and we worked in ministry together. We're really good friends. He went to college, met some people. We all came to LA, right? So when I moved in, there was already the offer for me to crash for free, right? But what I wanted to do was make sure that I'm not overextending my request of hospitality and not asking them for too much, right, or whatever, right? So I can't remember if I asked or offered, or whether or not they kind of told. No, I'm pretty sure they told me, and the person that owned the place was like, "Yo, this is how we do things, and if you could participate, be very, that'll be cool." And no problem. So like we would buy certain things for the fridge in rotation. You know what I mean? I think like we split drinks and stuff. Like we would buy a lot of things to drink and we would all share it or whatever. Like stuff like that. And we talked about bills and, how to do stuff, right? Had the conversation. So if you're moving into a situation, you got to do what my point was talk to your neighbor. So you might want to get an idea of what things will cost. So, you will know your rent. So you don't need to ask somebody their rent, but you might want to get an idea of, what are the costs for cable or stuff around here for those who still watch cable. A lot of people have TV. I don't. I do all streaming or whatever. So, but how much is a month of gas? You know what I mean? If the building has gas heaters and it's winter, how much a month? About and other stuff like that. The water bill and yada, water and power kind of stuff. How much does it cost, right? So if you know that going in, great. You can have that conversation during your efforts to find a roommate. But if not, having that estimation will help you have the conversation with your new roommate if you're already, in the situation where you gotta deal with somebody already, right? If the decision has been made by you or somebody else. So you talk about money. And you literally divide up, well, what bills can you pay that would constitute 50% of the total cost, right? If I have seen that to be a bit better because it's hard to always want someone else to give you money and all the bills are in your name, because if they just decide they're not gonna or whatever, all the bills are in your name. Right now, if you are the person on the lease and you have the legal right to kick them out, then it's no big deal. Right? You put all the bills in your name, because if they act up and if you reach a point where things are unreasonable, kick them out. So have the money conversation and and honor it. You know what I mean? And be mindful if they do, and communicate respectfully when they don't, so y'all can make sure you stay in a good situation. All right, so do I got time? Yeah. So here are the red flags, or here are some of the red flags that I thought about, right? In all cases, if you've never learned this, big concept is, no one is ever unsafe or safe beyond their own knowledge, right? If there is danger near you and you don't know, you feel safe. If you know it, you recognize there's an issue there, right? If you know how to handle the danger, then you might not feel unsafe. You know what I mean? So the feeling of safe or unsafe is very relative and it's very contextual, right? But what isn't as abstract is the idea of danger. Do you sense danger? When you talk to somebody, notice things that agitate them, push a little bit. Learn who they are, not disrespectfully. Find out. If y'all are having a conversation where you disagree, respectfully argue your point. And don't stop until you feel like y'all have found common ground. If you don't, respectfully continue the conversation. What that will show you is somebody's fight or flight response. Conflicts will happen with every single human being you interact with. That it will always happen. You want to be respectful because some people are crazy, right? And you don't want to push the wrong button. But if you're living with somebody, you want to be paying attention so that you notice it as soon as possible so you can get away. Right? Do you notice a sense of danger? What behavior does someone resort to when they're frustrated? How does someone engage with you when you disagree? All right? When conflict is present, how do they handle it? What do they do? Do they communicate carefully, respectfully? Do they communicate without care and without respect? Are they inconsiderate? Do they lash out? Red flag. Do they start to huff and puff, and raise their voice and start to physically act out what they're saying? Red flag. Is it an extreme red flag, like flag on the field, knocking stuff over, yelling, insulting? Right? Do you sense danger? Because for people who act out their emotion physically, you don't know where their line is. Could just be huffing and puffing. Could just be someone who struggles to communicate stress, conflict, right? Could be someone who has lived a life of that kind of struggle and they're hoping to get away from it. And now you've said or done something that reminds them of something that they've suffered. Right? You don't know what somebody's triggers are. Do you sense danger? Very important. If you sense danger, you need to respond to the danger. First, communicate. Be honest. I'm concerned about this behavior. Am I safe around you when you're upset? Have the conversation. The reason I say that is because they are also learning. And if somebody's heart is in the right place and they hear you expressing concern with respect, where they don't feel like they're in danger, where they got to defend themselves or whatever, it gives somebody the opportunity to consider how they are affecting you. And someone that you can live with will pay attention to that and they'll try. And you'll see the try. You'll hear their language. You'll see them change their behavior, right? So now you know when that happens, I can talk to this person. When that doesn't work, that's a problem. When you can't have the conversation, or when you have the conversation and it gets worse, or you have the conversation, nothing changes. So depending on what it is, you got to think, do I want to live with this? Maybe, maybe not. Do you sense danger? Big deal. And, I'm not excluding the obvious symptoms of danger because those are obvious. If someone physically touches you in a way that's painful or uncomfortable or way too intense, or simply touches you without permission, right? Communicate. I'm not okay with you touching me without my permission, especially like that. When you put your hands on me, I need you to be respectful, or I need you to ask first. Whatever your comfort level is, you communicate that to them. I'm not okay with this. Again, some people might be from that kind of home, and having this new person say, that's not okay with me at all. Be very clear. I'm not cool with that. It makes me feel like I'm in danger. It makes me feel like I need to defend myself or get away. Communicate. That's a hard conversation to have, but you will have to accept the need for hard conversations. If you're not in danger, then it's just want to or don't want to. All right? If there's danger, it doesn't matter if you want to or not. You do not stay near or live near danger. You go away from danger. Because danger represents chaos and, arguably, and you cannot function sustainably. I think it's sustainably. You can't function and thrive in chaos. At least not unfamiliar chaos. You know what I mean? Like, some people are able to survive in areas and environments that to somebody else would be horror, but they're used to it. Like, my conversations I had in previous episodes with my friend Kenny. Like, he's from a place that to a lot of people feels like a nightmare. And there he sits. You know what I mean? He learned, he survived, he's doing well. Right? So, it's my time. You know what? I'm going to end. That danger is a good one. I'll talk about the specifics in a moment about like what things can represent other issues that are not as imminent in need for response. So, love y'all. Next week, I'll put up the second one. It might already be up. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm doing 2 parts right now. I might stagger them. I don't know. But I'll continue in a moment. Please come back after these messages from our sponsors.
If it's my time, then it's my time. Worry about yours, 'cause I got mine. 'Cause I got mine. Worry about yours, 'cause I got mine. 'Cause I got mine. Praise and production.